Last Friday, in episode 1, we talked about the most common immigration scams. Let's now analyze how to avoid those so called scams. Actually, we also analyzed how to avoid those immigration scams last week. Today, in episode 2, we are pleased to discuss about the 8 common mistakes new immigrants should personally avoid. At the live production, Andy Martinez, and on the microphone, Pastor Mercy Genebu-Boire, CEO of Leadership Excellence for Women by Women, a Dallas-based nonprofit organization.
Precious women of valor, precious men of valor, welcome to Leadership Excellence for Women by Women talk show.
Connect, explore, transform, and uplift each others to reach their limitless possibilities.
When did the domestic violence start in your marriage?
Immediately.
93% of juvenile victims of sexual abuse is by people they know.
Yes.
Before, I used to edit on a free software and people paid for that. Then I got better on my paid software, so I got more clients and they offered to pay more.
You don't need to go as far as fighting a woman, beating a woman, diminishing her, insulting her, humiliating her.
Non, on pensait que c'était une Américaine qui allait venir. Donc...
Les gens, dès qu'ils commencent un boulot, c'est fini, hein. C'est jusqu'à la retraite. Tu vois, ils ne cherchent pas à changer de boulot, ils ont peur.
The testimonies, the stories are just amazing.
Comment démystifier certains mythes sur l'augmentation de salaire et la promotion?
Leadership Excellence for Women by Women.
Precious women of valor, precious men of valor, good evening and welcome to the talk show of Leadership Excellence for Women by Women. Today, I'm pleased to present episode 2 of our talk show entitled 8 Common Mistakes New Immigrants Should Personally Avoid. Good evening, Attorney Bijoux Ngwanda. Pleasure to continue our discussion with you.
Good evening, Pastor Mercy, and thanks for having me again.
Sure. Last week, you just empower us to really understand our rights, to understand the immigration process, how to avoid those scams. Now, today we are going to talk about how, as new immigrant, you should also personally avoid some mistake. If you have just arrived in the United States or plan to come soon, it is wise to ensure that all your application and documents are in order.
Yes.
Avoiding the mistake we are going to be talking about can save you time, energy, and most importantly, give you peace of mind.
Sure.
Attorney Bijoux, let's talk about U.S. immigration mistake number 1, not getting a social security number. Can we have the technical team put that up, please? If you have arrived in the United States, obtaining your social security number should be a top priority. Attorney Bijoux, what are the benefits of a social security number?
Yes, before I answer that question, I just want to clarify something here, okay? Because people come to the U.S. for multiple purposes. Some people come with a visitor visa for visit or pleasure. Some people come to actually stay here as actually immigrant. Some people come as students, or some people just come with a work visa, depending by the manner by which you enter in the U.S., right? Let's say you come with a visitor visa. You're not supposed to be getting a social security number because you're not supposed to be working on a visitor visa. But for the purpose of the show, we're going to focus more on immigrant, the people who actually come with an immigrant visa. So they're supposed to stay here. So those people are supposed to apply for a social security number because that's the only way you can work in the US. The benefits are it's going to give you an authorization to work because the employer is going to request that. That's basically how they identify you. And that's a manner by which you're going to be paying your taxes as well. So the number one benefit is just work. You have to work because you have family. For your own welfare, you have to work. Another benefit that I can think of is for your retirement later on, after working for all those years, then you have to get your money, right? The retirement money. It's called Social Security income. And the fact that you had one and you worked under one, when the age of retirement comes, then you'll be able to apply for that retirement and get that benefit. Those are the two that benefit that I can think of for now.
Yeah. And are there any negative consequences of not getting a social security number as a new immigrant to the United States?
Yes, if you don't get a social security number, how are they going to basically identify you? You cannot apply, let's say, for you want to apply for work, right? You can't. Let's say you want to apply for some type of medical help with government, Medicaid, food stamp, or anything that you have to get from government in terms of welfare. You cannot, because they have to be able to identify you. So yes, you have to get your social security number if you came with that immigrant visa. So you have to.
Absolutely. And the Social Security Administration, SSA, recommend that newly arrived immigrants wait 10 days to apply for a Social Security card. Why is that?
Well, I believe, in my personal opinion, the reason they will say wait for 10 days, it's because by the time you go to the office, at least by 10 days, they will have all your information in the system, so that when you go there, then you can just easily pull the information and fill out the forms, and it's much easier for you to just apply the same day that you go to that appointment. Because if you go earlier, then maybe the information hasn't generated in their system yet. They might have to give you a second appointment. I believe it's just like they want to make sure that enough time has lapsed before you actually go there and get to apply. So
it makes sense. It makes sense. Let's talk about U.S. immigration mistake number 2. Not completing your document correctly.
Yeah.
We know that the application process to become an immigrant can often seem confusing. Attorney Bijoux, how crucial is it to remember to submit all required documents or to not miss a filing deadline?
Well, first of all, it's important not to miss a deadline. That's just number one. It's important, especially for certain types of applications. Let's talk, for example, one that comes to mind right away is TPS. TPS, for example, is a status that they give to, it's called temporary protected status. It's a temporary legal status that they give to certain national of certain countries. And when the DHS announce it, right, they give you a registration period of time. They say, for example, that's just an example. They'll say, for example, from January to December, that's the registration period. And that's when you're supposed to apply. So if you miss that deadline, then you have to wait for another year to actually apply for that specific type of benefit. So you have to be alert. You have to know in order for you not to miss the deadline. That's just how important it is, because it's going to delay your process. And pretty much you're just going to be waiting. What if they don't open another registration? Then you just stay in the limbo and just miss your benefit. Okay?
Yeah, actually, let's talk about that deadline, filing, not missing a deadline. We know that also, again, we've talked slightly about that last week. When we say immigration, please, I want new immigrants to understand that the people at the immigration are people like just Attorney Bijoux and I. They are human. And they understand that things can happen. I am saying this because this happened to me 19 years ago when I was new in the US. And the immigration sent me a letter and I for an appointment.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, I moved, and when the letter came to my formal address, my former landlord, he did not act quickly to inform me so I could come and pick it up. And it was like, I think 2 or 3 weeks, I kept calling him. And then finally I was like, something is wrong, because definitely I know that, just like we've talked about it last week, immigration, they send you letter. So I was expecting that letter. And one day I just called my landlord and I was begging him. I said, please, do you mind to check, among your mail? I'm pretty sure they have sent it. Finally, he called me back telling me that, yes, it's been delivered a week ago. Attorney Bijoux, I am telling you, I was in class. I could not even follow, what was being taught in that day.
Okay.
As soon as class ended, I just head out straight to his place, pick up a letter, open it, and sure enough, the deadline has passed. I was new. I didn't know that, immigration, they understand exception. So I just collapsed and I was crying like I was dead, because I'm like, oh my God, I'm in big trouble. I'm going to get deported. And thankfully, a friend of mine that took me to pick up the letter, he was like, come down, you can write to immigration and explain what happened. So I had to just, dry my tears, compose myself, and then wrote that letter and explain what happened, that I moved and this. And, sure enough, they understood and they rescheduled me. So, Attorney Bijoux, yes, we are talking about deadline and all of that. Can you please explain a little bit on that, so that somebody like me 19 years ago, thank God there was somebody next to me who told me, don't worry, it can be fixed. But if I didn't have that person next to me,
right,
I don't know what would have been my fate.
Right.
Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. Deadlines, important not to miss them, right? Especially for those type of application where you have to wait for another year for the registration period to open up. Really, it's important not to miss those type of deadline. But let's say in a situation where it's an interview, they say you have to appear for this interview for your asylum application at USCIS on such and such date, and you miss that deadline. Well, of course, you have to show good cause, right? The reason why you missed it, explain to them. Then they're going to provide you with a new date. But the reason, first of all, if we go back and see the reason you missed it, it's because you didn't change maybe you didn't change your address with USCIS. That's why the law requires that any person who's either in court or applying for benefits with USCIS, they have to, if they change the address, they have to notify the court or USCIS within 5 days, period. Because if a decision has been made within 5 days and you've never notified them, it's on you, not on them. Then it's going to take a lot on you to start explaining yourself. You know what I mean? And hope that it actually get understood. We have a client where they were supposed to go for the interview for this green card based on marriage. Then they got into a argument, spouse and wife type of argument. Then the wife said, well, we have to reschedule this interview. So we had to reschedule that. We called, reschedule, we gave good cause. The second time around again, we called, reschedule, give good cause. They gave us a date. The third time, USCIS say, look, now, even if you have good cause, you're just going to wait until we actually have a spot. Then we're going to call you for the interview. Mind you, those people were supposed to go to the interview back in 2020 until today. You see, You see how important it is not to miss a deadline, especially in a situation where you could have done something, like, for example, change the address, or, for example, just do it within the time frame. So it is really important not to miss the deadline. And I want to add one more thing to it, as far as missing other documents. It's just going to delay your own process. Under Trump, it was even worse. They will just deny it, period. But now under Biden, it's much better. They'll send you a letter telling you this is what you're missing. This is what you're missing. Please send this to us by such and such date. But under Trump, we didn't receive those letters. If they just see a document missing, application denied, period. So that's how important it is not to miss the deadline, and just make sure that you submit with all the documents possible.
Yeah. And you know, actually, I'm thinking back. Last week, we talked about websites.
Right.
And you explained that U.S. Immigration has websites, official websites, where you can actually go and check the status of your application. If you miss, I believe also, and I think with COVID, you know, some of the process have really improved. You file actually online, which was different in, like, you know, 20 years ago when I went through the process.
Right.
It had to be made.
Right.
So today, you can definitely, you know, submit all your application online. You can follow the status of your application. If you miss providing some document, you can go back. Correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney Bijoux, but you can go back and add those documents to your file.
Yes, if you have a file online. Yes.
Exactly. So definitely take advantage of that for the online, and make sure again, if you haven't watched episode 1 of last week, please make time to go back and watch it, because Attorney Bijoux really broke it down for us on how to avoid those fraudulent websites. Let's talk about U.S. immigration mistake number 3. And intentionally reporting false information. Technical team, can we have that up, please? It is easy to accidentally provide false information on immigration forms. No one has a perfect memory, and this form requires a large amount of information. Attorney Bijoux, would U.S. immigration accept excuse like "I didn't know," "I didn't want to" as a defense? What could happen if you provide incorrect or misleading information in your application?
Okay, so I'm going to break this one. This is a really heavy topic. I'm going to break it in two ways.
Sure.
Let's start with simple mistakes. Okay, let's say, for example, it's a typo mistakes. Your date of birth is, for example, April 1984, right? And then you put April 2084. That mistake can be easily corrected. You can do it on the day of the interview, or you can just amend the application by sending them really a letter saying that I made a mistake on my birth date, or you can even correct it online. They have a web, like on their website, it says error, like how to correct typographical error. So you can find it on USCIS.gov. Those are mistakes that can be corrected, because any application can be amended anytime before the interview. You have that time to make that amendment, to make that correction. But when we're talking about misleading information, reporting false information, those are pretty much like crimes, in other words, okay? So you cannot mislead any U.S. official, any USCIS officer, or the court. You cannot. Especially when you're under oath, you just don't do it, because first of all, it's perjury. But anyway, let's say you found yourself in a situation where you pretty much misled USCIS. Some situations I can think of is people usually say to USCIS, especially for people back home, right? When they want to travel, they say, well, I don't have children, for example. But the application actually asks you, do you have children? You say, for example, I don't, right? And then you get to the US. Now, all of a sudden, you want a petition for the children. Well, now USCIS is looking at you like, well, wait a minute. Aren't you the same person who stated on your application under oath that you had no children? How come now you're talking about you want to petition the children? What type of children? So pretty much it becomes fraud. you have to have a sufficient pretty much type of explanation for them to actually believe that maybe you never knew about those children before. What happened? How come all of a sudden now you have children?
Yeah.
So, and that's really things to just avoid altogether.
Mhm.
But find yourself in those type of situation. Sometimes there's thing you can do to rectify it and hope that they agree with you. But most of the time you cannot, you see, and then the application gets denied. Sometimes you can file for what we call waiver, ask for forgiveness, and hope that they actually understand and forgive you. But it's going to cost you attorney's fees, it's going to cost you money, it's going to cost you USCIS fees, it's just going to cost you, then it's going to just delay the entire process.
Yeah.
So those are things just to avoid. Just, especially misleading, just don't do it. It's not worth it.
Absolutely, because once you raise a red flag to them, the probability of you being able to convince them, I'm not saying this doesn't exist, but it become really, really tight. So, yeah. Immigration error number 4, failing to submit the correct amount required for payment for a service. Almost all immigration form requires an application fee. Let's say, for instance, Attorney Bijoux, if I don't pay the full fee, will the U.S. government begin processing my case? And here I'm talking about, to our African brother who really like to, pay like in payment plan or, yeah. So let's talk about that.
No, USCIS will not take incomplete fees. That's what they call it. So basically, they're going to reject your application. End of the story. That's it. They're just going to look at the fee is incomplete. They reject the application.
So there is no option for you to make like a payment plan?
No, they don't do that. They don't do that. Pretty much, they don't do that. If you're a low income type of family, there's a form that you file to ask them to waive the fee. If they agree with your argument, they can waive the fee. But we don't encourage people to do it because then later on in the process, we have a concept that is called public charge. Then later on the process, then they'll say, well, you were taking help from government. Now, how come can you sponsor this person? So you yourself is a public charge to government. How come can you sponsor this person? We just tell people don't do it, especially if you have future plans, right? Don't do it. Just find your money and apply with the correct fee. And the way to find out that there is this fee is correct, you just go to uscis.gov. There's a calculator. You put the type of form you're applying, your age. That's it. And then it just shows you the exact amount you're going to pay to USCIS.
Wow. Actually, Attorney Bijoux, let's backtrack slightly because you just said something that just raised my antenna. Public charge. We know that less than 2 years ago, this was a big deal in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
With formal administration. And many thought like it was now dismissed with a new administration. Is it still existing or not?
So people think it's dismissed. I'm not going to say it's dismissed. I'm going to say now it's being evaluated differently. Okay. So they're just not going to deny your case because you took public benefit. They're going to look at the totality of circumstances and pretty much decide based on that. So they're following the way they used to do it back in 1999. I know with Trump, it was really strict. Once you took public benefit, green card denied. But now what they're saying is like, well, because of COVID, because of people having some type of difficulty, sometimes they really have to rely on those benefits, but not for a very long time, right? But at some point, maybe they might have taken a food stamp or Medicaid and things like that. We're going to evaluate and then decide whether they're going to become public charge in the future. So what I'm trying to say here is that when it comes to paying for USCIS fees, what I will really suggest or advise is that you just find the money and pay them their fees. Because the moment you ask for help, for them to waive, certain people can do that, like asylum applicants, if they have the asylee status, right? VAWA applicants, those are people who are victim of domestic violence and stuff like that. Yeah, you can do that because really you don't have the money, and you can ask for USCIS to waive those fees for you. But I'm talking about the other people, general population. Just don't do it, because later on, when trying to sponsor your spouse or sponsor your child, sponsor this, sponsor that, then they look at you like, well, if you can't even pay your fees for your own application, how are you going to sponsor this person? You pretty much, you are a public charge to us. And your application might be denied. So people don't have to dismiss that, because public charge, they're still taking it into consideration. As a matter of fact, the green card application has been updated to a new version where they really ask you, are you going to be a public charge? What is your income in your family? What are your debts? How many credit cards? Like what is your level of education? So really they want to try to figure out, are you really going to be just a public charge? So yeah, just come up with the money, pay your fees, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes sense also, because this is a country where you can become whatever you want to be.
Right.
Opportunity. It's a country of the land of opportunity.
That's true.
And it makes sense if for you yourself in a land of opportunity. And again, just like Attorney Bijoux said, there are circumstances that could, exist, like sickness and things like that. We are not talking about that. But you are able to work and take care of yourself, and yet you choose to depend on the government. How would you have the financial means to sponsor somebody? It just makes sense.
Right.
So, yeah. Let's talk about U.S. immigration error number 5.
Okay.
Sending untranslated documents.
Okay.
For example, as a new Francophone, French-speaking immigrant, can I just send my document in French, including my supporting evidence, to immigration without English translation? If not, can I do the translation myself without legalization, Attorney Bijoux?
No. No, you have to, basically, it even says on the instruction form that you have anything that is in any other language other than English has to be translated. And by translation, it has to be certified translation, meaning that legalized, as you put it. It has to be someone who's qualified to translate, and the person has to certify that they are translating this document to the best of their knowledge, and they have those capacity to translate as translator. So it has to be certified translation, and it has to be in English, because it's America. This is our official language here is English. So yeah, if you just send like that, basically what's going to happen, it's either it's going to be rejected, or they're going to send you a letter saying that, please, we need this, we need that, and it's just going to delay your application.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And that's when, if that officer is in a good mood that day. So,
yeah, if not, you just reject it. Yeah.
Yeah. U.S. immigration error number 6. That one, it just made me smile when I put it up for to ask you. Forgetting to sign your application. Yes, it might seem strange that someone forget to sign the application after all the work they have put into it. Unfortunately, forgetting to sign an application happen. Attorney Bijoux, will such an application missing one or more signatures be accepted by U.S. immigration?
No, it's going to be rejected. It's just going to be rejected. That's it. They're just going to send the entire application back to you for you to sign it. And mind you, you have to sign it in ink, right? You really have to use ink, like a black pen, and actually sign it. You cannot put like a stamp signature. You cannot put like a e-signature, you will have to sign it in ink. I had a client, I think she's like well educated, a business owner. Try to explain to her, like, we know that you have e-signature, but those applications with USCIS, it has to be signed in ink. She want to debate with me. I'm like, you know what? You want to experience? Okay, we're going to send it, but I already told you that it's going to be rejected. I sign everywhere with my e-signature. I sign everywhere, anytime. But anyway, we did it because she wouldn't listen. Then it was rejected. I'm like, you see, you just wanted to waste your time. So now sign it. You see? So yeah, sometimes people just don't want to, they just don't want to do the right thing. You see?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, you have to sign it. Otherwise, it's just going to be rejected. That's it.
Thanks for letting us know that. So viewers, new immigrant, sign. You can have the best technology signature, but like Attorney Bijoux said, you have to sign it in ink. And just follow, the instruction, and you will do absolutely fine. U.S. immigration mistake number 7, not filing your U.S. taxes.
Oh.
What problem can a new immigrant incur by not filing the taxes in the United States? Attorney Bijoux?
Yes, not filing a tax in the U.S., it's pretty much a federal crime, right? You have to file your taxes. You have to file your tax return every year. And some people have exceptions because maybe they made their low income. They didn't make the type of money that requires you to file for a tax return. But you have to know that. You have to talk to the accountant to know that whether based on your income, you're not required to file. But in general, everybody, they're supposed to file their tax return because if you don't file it, it's a federal crime. You might end up in prison, or you might end up paying fine, or both. Fine.
Then in that case, let's talk about, emphasize here the law which applies even to illegal immigrants who must declare and pay their taxes in the United States. Because somebody who's illegal may think like, well, I'm working under the table, or I'm illegal, so I don't have to. Can you break it down for us, please, Attorney?
Yes, even if you are illegal immigrant, you have to pay your taxes. What undocumented people do is that they file for this tax identification number, TIN, tax identification number. So they have a number. It's not a social security, but it's a number that it is recognized by IRS. And the way you file it, you just go to irs.gov, ask you for information, and you file. You get a number so that when you file your tax return, you can use that number if you don't have a social security number. So by any means, you have to file your tax return. So if you don't have a social security number, then you have to get a TIN, a tax identification number. Unless you're working like they're paying you cash by somebody who doesn't even declare the income, but that's not the way to go, because the day you're gonna get caught, everything becomes really bad for you. So if you don't have a social security number, you have to get a tax identification number so that your employer will know, and then they just have to take the taxes. Really, you just have to file your taxes. It's federal law,
Yeah, absolutely. We are almost at the end of our talk show today. Let's talk about the last immigration error, number 8, but not the least, not getting the best help available. Attorney Bijoux, if you are a new immigrant navigating the immigration process, what service as attorney do you offer to such new immigrants?
Well, I am a solo practitioner, so very much I run my own office. I work with anything immigration, except for some type of visitor visa. I don't really do those. But anything else, as far as filing for asylum, representing in court, marriage based on green card, those humanitarian visa such as T visa, U visa, employment visa, all those category, EB1, EB2, EB3, EB4, anything that has to do with immigration, even representing people from outside, like people who petition for their spouse that are outside of the country that have to join them, like family reunification, stuff like that. So pretty much anything immigration.
And how can they contact you?
Well, you can contact me by either calling my number 202-751-2180 or email me. Email address is info@ngwandalawoffice.com. That way I will send them, I do require fees for consultation. I'll send them a link, then they can schedule their consultation on their own time.
Yeah.
But if people are just seeking for free resources, I have a YouTube channel where I really give some type of information. It's really like followed by at least 11,000 people. We give information weekly. They can join that too if they just need to hear some information here and there. Yeah. I have a Facebook group as well. Immigration on Demand, that's the name of the Facebook group. People post their questions there too. Those are free resources. They can follow me on TikTok as well, or Instagram at Attorney Bijoux.
We'll make sure to put all of that the video so that people can be able to reach out to you. Definitely. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And that way we can help them basically to file any type of petition that they are qualified for.
Okay. Attorney Bijoux, thank you again for this great discussion. Precious women of valor, precious men of valor, dear viewers, we are at the end of our talk show. Thank you for staying with us, and we will meet you next Friday, February 3rd, 2023 at 2:30 p.m. Washington, D.C. time for another talk show. So again, please support us, share this talk show. Don't keep the information for yourself. And just like Attorney Bijoux said, she can help you out even if you are overseas. So please make sure to share the information with your family, with your friend, with people that need those kind of information. And we will see you next Friday. And take care of yourself. Bye-bye. Thank you so much again, Attorney Bijoux. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me, Pastor Mercy.
Sure.